morning, everyone. This morning it's beautiful outside. It's very cold here in central Missouri. I think it was about 10 degrees wind chill or 9. And I decided warm bread sounded good. I'd actually been thinking about it. So today I'm going to be making a challah recipe from a cookbook I was given many, many years ago. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get our yeast started. In this bowl, I have a half a cup of warm, just warm to on the wrist tepid, and I'm going to put in 1 pack of active dry yeast. A few weeks ago, I had yeast fail on me, and it was an instant yeast, and it was new, and from the same thing, I consider it still new. I had also had I'd had it fail before, so I thought maybe it was just a fluke that time. So I'm tired of throwing out flour and sugar and all those goodies. So I'm going with this active dry yeast. That's what the recipe here calls for anyway. With all my recipes, I put the recipe down in the description box. So to that, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar, and I've got my sugar right here. I'm going to go into a different one for that. Excuse me for disappearing act, but I'm going down here to my sugar container. So, but you know, that's going to feed the yeast. And I'm going to mix this up a little bit, and then we're going to set this aside for, I think we just set it aside for about 10 minutes or until it starts to bubble. When it starts to bubble, you know your yeast is alive, and then you can go ahead and proceed with your putting in your flour, eggs, because this has eggs, oil, water, more sugar, salt, and those are just things I'm not willing to throw out. I don't want to beat this, but I'm just stirring it so it's well mixed. And this yeast is brand new. I bought it this weekend, weekend ago, and it's really, I can already tell, and I can smell it. It smells great. So I'm going to let that proof or start bubbling up, and I'll show you what that looks like. Then we're going to move on to the rest of this. Now this recipe says knead 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, what I'm going to do right now, because I'm getting close to the time, I can tell the yeast is active and it's going to do well. I'm going to mix together 2 eggs that I've beaten in this bowl. So there goes 2 eggs. This is going to be a pretty rich dough. It's one that you could even make cinnamon rolls or like monkey bread or something like that out of if you wanted to. Let's see, I've got a half a cup of oil here, and I'm using canola. Next thing up is half a cup of water, and I've got warm water, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix this together, and then I'll add the yeast to it. Have any of you ever made challah? If you have, why don't you leave me a comment down below about your favorite thing about making challah? Other than the fact that it tastes real good. I was thinking about some other breads today, and I thought, you know, I may want to do that as like 1 challah, because this recipe I think makes, let's see, 2 large loaves. So I may make 1 loaf and have it like a braided shape. The rest I might do a pull apart, like monkey bread type thing. And that'll be our dessert tonight. To add to that, and then we're going to alternate 4 to 5 cups of flour. That's going to depend kind of on what this looks like for me. And here this is at this point. That's just those ingredients together. And this yeast looks great. It's all bubbly and it's foamy. Hope you can see that. Bubbly and foamy. So I'm going to alternate that. also, at this point, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I need to add in here I have 2 tablespoons of sugar plus a 1/4 cup. So this is gonna, as I said, this is gonna be a sweet bread. Retrieve this back out of my bowl over there. I'm gonna put that in now. So we'll have these ingredients. We're just gonna be adding the yeast mixture then and the flour. And I still have to make that big decision. Isn't it awful? I haven't made that decision yet. Am I gonna put it on my stand mixer, or am I going to do it this way, where you just knead it. I don't know if I have 10 to 15 minutes of kneading in me this morning or not. Probably, but we'll see. I'm gonna add a cup of flour. And then I'll add part of the yeast mixture. So I'm going to do that, like add this, get it kind of mixed, add some of the yeast while we're still mixing here. Here goes some of the yeast mixture. And I'm going to do this until I've got all the cups, the 4 to 5 cups of flour and all the yeast mixture in this bowl. At that point, by then, surely I'll have made a decision. Am I going to do this in the mixing stand, or am I going to knead it? I do have quite a bit on the agenda today. My dog Sissy, you all hear me talk about, my little old dog, she's over there watching me do this. She's usually taking a nap right now because it's still early here. Oh my goodness, it's a glorious day out there. It's fantastic. And how happy I am that looks like all of my seedlings are coming up, which I'll make another video of that. They are coming up, and my onions are coming up. That's all in indoor seed starting I'm doing. Okay, I'll be right back with you when I get this all mixed together. So I'll just add a cup of flour, some yeast mixture, a cup of flour, yeast mixture, and I'll get that together, and then we'll get to kneading or put it in the mixer. I've got all this mixed, and I'm going to give this kneading a go. So everybody cross your fingers. I put some flour out on my board here, and I've got on the worst possible outfit, the black, because I'll have flour all over me. I always do. I have whatever I'm cooking, it doesn't matter, bread or whatever. I'm just kind of trying to feel this dough out. We're not going to need to add very much more flour to it because I want it to be a light, fluffy dough. See that yeast there? Okay, I think we're ready to do this. Now I'm not going to keep you with me the whole 15 minutes. We're helping the gluten develop, the strands of the gluten develop. And you know, I really have never thought that much about it till I started watching YouTube. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? I just did it because the recipe said so. But now I think, well, you do have an audience that may want to know. And if you want to know more about bread making, look it up. You'll find a lot. Once I get this all kneaded into a nice ball, then what I'll do is I have an oiled pan ready, and I'm going to put it in it, and I've got my oven on warm because my house is cool enough today. I want to be sure this rises well. After a couple hours I'll check it, and if it's doubled, I'll check it before then, but if it's doubled, then it's time to take it out, push it down, or punch it down, whatever you want to do. Like I said, this kneading can become a meditative sort of thing. It would help if my little table wasn't going away from me. I'll be on the other side of the kitchen by the time I'm done. But anyway, then after I take it out, I'll punch it down, split it up into 2 loaves, and I'll have made up my mind whether I'm going to make one of it into a cinnamon brown sugary kind of thing for dessert, or just for whenever go in and pull a piece of it off and eat it. It'll be kind of like what they call monkey bread or pull apart bread if I do that. I have made cinnamon rolls with this before, and they were really good. I've used the same recipe to put lemon zest on it once it was ready. You know, you pat it out and get it all ready. Once it's doubled that in size, you do that. I put a little oil on it, spread it with my hands, or butter would be better. Not hot melted butter, but just melted butter. And then I put blueberries and brown sugar and lemon zest. And I made rolls out of that. That was good. Haven't done that in a long time. Okay, I'm going to be back with y'all when I have this all ready to go into the oven, and that's just to warm it because of I don't have a real warm spot right now. If it warms up in here, it feels like it is. Maybe it's me pushing around on this dough that's warming me up. But anyway, I'll have it in a warm spot. I think my oven's like at 170 degrees. And that's nice and warm. Sometimes I'll turn it on and just let it get a little warm like that, and then I'll turn it off, and that works fine. Let me just say I broke a sweat. But we have a nice ball, round ball here of dough. I'm sending it into this pan with my best wishes for it. Okay, and I have oiled this, like I said, very, very lightly with canola oil. My olive oil tastes strongly of olive oil, and I want the bread to be neutral in that aspect. So in it goes. It's going to go. I'm going to cover this with a tea towel, and I think I'll get a little bit of the oil. I'm turning it upside down, see, to get a little bit of the oil on the surfaces so it doesn't dry out. Going to get a clean tea towel and cover it and put it in the oven. And then I'll check on it probably like in an hour, hour and a half, just because I'm curious. But it takes about 2 hours for this to rise and be ready for its final push down and shaping and then go into bake. So it'll rise one more time and then go to bake. So that's where we're at. Got a nice rise on the dough here. I'm going to get some flour, because we're going to be, I've decided that I'm going to do one braided loaf, and then I'm going to do, I'm going to cut some up and I'll show you how, and I'm going to mix it with brown sugar, butter, and cinnamon, and I'm going to make a pull apart. And I'm going to get out a pan that I want to put that in to rise by itself. So I'll have this pan for this right here. Got my chicken in my pot. I had to go ahead and get that started. I'll do chicken tetrazzini for y'all another time. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to just punch this down. It's a little dry on the top, so that means I know to put more oil the next time. I'm going to take it out of here. We're done with this pan essentially. Well, let me keep it because I might want to mix that other in it. So I'm going to pull this apart. Just barely knead it a bit. I don't want to knead it too much. Doing that punch down is enough punching that it needs. It doesn't need much more. So I'm going to divide this in two. Get my little gizmo over here. Can't hardly keep myself from kneading this bread after I was like, I don't know if I want to do that or not. Okay, I want to see what roughly looks like half. Smells wonderful. I wish you could smell it. Okay, I cut it in half. The biggest portion in my mind is going to go to making the challah, because that's going to be divided in 3 pieces. Set that right there. That's for our dessert bread that I'm making. Okay, So 3 pieces, roughly identical. We hope that they're usually pretty close in shape, size. I'm going to shape them how I want them actually. And I just roll it. I used to make this a whole lot because I loved it. But that's been, good grief, that was like 40 years ago. But it looks, look, I mean, that when they talk about muscle memory and the memory in our, that we have in our hands and all that, it's just that memory kicks in and it's right there. And you know what feels right with this bread and you know what doesn't. I need to get this a little bit longer because I'm going to make a pretty long one. Pretty good size. The recipe says it makes 2 good sized loaves. If it's not big, it's fine because I'm not feeding a bunch of people. But I want to get it where I can really get a nice braid on it, basically. Okay, here's what seems to be a little bit smaller. And I'll rob for this one if I have to. Because this was my main thing to show y'all was this challah. In case you ever want to make it, you can use it for anything. I mean, the recipe is just a good sweet bread recipe. And this will go back in to warm again in the warm oven. And I've got it at 170 degrees. Like I said, it's a little bit cool in here. And my bread doesn't rise, my yeast and my dough doesn't rise as quickly as I'd like for it to sometimes. In the summer, it would do great. But we've had some really cold weather, and I could tell it's affecting things. Just like when I make candy, it's got to be the right humidity. I made candy, and I did a video for Valentine's Day to put up on YouTube. And those candies both were epic fails. Lots of sugar, lots of goodies, lots a trip to the store just to get some like gummy drops to cut up and put in it. And for a nougat I made, a fudge nougat. What a shame, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to use this bowl as the mixing thing for all of these goodies that are going to be over here with this sweet bread. To be honest with you, this stuff, I'll brush the egg on the top and with a little milk before I put it in. And it's going to be delicious, hot with butter on it. But that right there, with that cinnamon and sugar, I'm always saying I'll get a cup of coffee. Because I mean it. I'm like a cup of coffee person. Okay, so I want to be sure y'all can see this. So I take these and I squish them together, the ends of the 3. And I'll leave the one in the middle as it is. I'm just going to kind of tuck that under, leave the one in the middle, and I'm going to start braiding. I'm going to do a nice braid because I want a pretty loaf of bread for dinner tonight. I think I'll serve with that chicken tetrazzini. This isn't really quite the bread you'd think of it, being a sweet bread, but boy, if we have homemade bread, we don't care. When I say we, I'm always referring to kids usually. Kids and grandkids. So, you just keep on. Like you see, one's a little bit not stretched enough. You just stretch it out and make it work for you. It's not that, it's really not that difficult once you start doing this. It's really not. Okay, and then this, when I get to the end piece, I'm just kind of folding that under. And I've got a pan with parchment. Let's see, this pan's over here. And I'm going to put it by itself into that. And I may put a little oil on the top so it doesn't dry out. But once this is risen, I'm going to give it about 45 minutes. Once it's risen again, then I'm going to brush the top of this with the egg wash I talked about, and I'll show you that. And this, once it's risen, it's going to be ready to go right into the oven. I think this is going to bake at like 375. I might put some seeds on the top of this with the egg wash on top of this challah, but the only seeds I have are sesame. I don't have poppy seeds, which is traditional, but sesame seeds would probably be pretty tasty on top of that. So this one's going back in the oven. See you later. To rise again. And now we're going to show you the fun of this monkey bread. Now this one, I'm going to put some butter in this pan. When I'm working with butter, I work with my hands a lot. Well, cooks work with their hands. I don't care. I'm sure if I was a certified restaurant, I'd be having to meet health standards as far as what, like wearing gloves and stuff. But it's just me and my fam. And I don't plan on a food stand anytime soon. Or a food truck. No way. But the garden, it's on. It's going to be going. I'm in Missouri, Zone 6A. And so it's going to be a little bit before we're out in the garden, but I'm started. So I've got brown sugar, butter, and I'm thinking I'm going to add more of each. And I'm going to get my cinnamon. I think I've got another container of cinnamon. I personally, cinnamon kind of bothers me a little bit. I'm not allergic to it, but it makes my tongue burn, so not everybody maybe gets as much cinnamon as they like when they're eating with me. I just mix this up, get it nice and gooey. It starts to kind of melt because of the body heat. I'm going to put it over here in this pan, and I'll cut these up into little pieces. I see you could just press this out, roll it out, press it out, and you could make cinnamon rolls if you wanted. But I don't know, there's just something about making some of that pull apart bread that I'm like, oh yeah, that's, everybody can just come in and take a little piece off of that when they want. Okay, I'm gonna cut it up. Seems like it's rising and getting bigger as we're standing here. This is beautiful dough, beautiful dough. I was so dejected when my dough did not rise and I had to dump that. I waited 4 hours, 5 hours, just thinking, oh, it'll do it. It never did it. Never did it. So I have a dog over here to the right. My son's Australian Shepherd. She's such a good girl, but boy, when there's food involved, she's like Johnny on the spot. Like, okay, where is it? I'm here. Why am I not be given any? She cracks me up. Sometimes she aggravates me, but mostly she cracks me up. If you watch my gardening videos, you look for the photo bombs of her. She looks like a bear, but she's actually an Australian Shepherd of some sort. And she does herd. She likes to herd me if she can. And she also likes to herd my little granddaughter, great-granddaughter. It's so cute. Because the great-granddaughter's oblivious to the dog trying to herd her because she's doing her own thing, you know. All right. Now, I may want to mix some more of this up. One thing you could do, too, is you could melt your butter instead of putting it in softened like I did. And if you melt the butter, this is going to coat easier. I'm just going to make it a little assembly line here. So while I was waiting for the dough to rise, I checked my seeds. My cabbage is up. These seedlings are only 4 days old. I planted these seeds 4 days ago. The cabbage is up. The cauliflower's up. The broccoli is up. Everything's doing so good. I'm so thankful. I can just see it. I can just see it. So the next thing I'll be doing with that is tomatoes and peppers. I think I'll do some more cabbage and broccoli. Maybe cauliflower too. I'm going to make some sauerkraut this summer. I did sauerkraut last year. And I did it like just sitting, sitting on the counter. And I kept a jar of that in the fridge. That fermented, good fermented probiotics. And I kept that in the fridge for probably 3 months, and it just stayed good and good for you. Gardens are win-win situations, and as a senior citizen, I want to tell you that if you're all capable, growing things does more for you than just feed your body. There's something about watching it, and maybe not for everybody, but for most of us, seeing those seeds respawn and that garden, when you get it out in the garden and the way they're responding and the way they come up, and it's not that much attention to them. And I've had a couple knee replacements and a hip. I will tell you, I'm sort of bionic. Actually, that's kind of how I look at it. Sort of bionic. These are all covered. My pan is much bigger than what I need, so I'm going to shove this up like this. And there we go, and it's going to go in. I'm going to let it rise. Everything's risen. If you wonder why I'm not putting this in bread pans, I don't have a bread pan. I moved here a few years ago, never have gotten the bread pan, and I don't know what happened to my bread pans. I don't know if I didn't move them, but I had to go back and clean the place, so I know there was nothing there, so I don't know. So I'm brushing. Boy, that's a nice bright yellow oak. I'm glad to see that again, that yolk on that. So I'm just brushing it. I got the sesame seeds out that I have to sprinkle on the top of it, and they're toasted, and I just didn't want to do that. So I didn't want to put already toasted ones on there. So the oven is preheated to 325 degrees. This egg's going to give this a nice shiny luster, and it will be really pretty. It won't taste like egg, but there is, if you remember, there's 2 eggs in this recipe, but it won't taste like egg. Okay, so this is ready to go in. And I'll show it to you when it comes out. Ready to go in, ready to go in. Okay, 35 minutes, maybe a few minutes over, and the challah's out, and it's a nice looking bread. And I'm going to tell you what I did here. I took a little piece and took a bite. Already, it's really good.